Professor of Political Geography at the Royal Military College of Canada, Dr. Lubomyr Luciuk, has been in London this week, where he has held meetings with representatives of the Association of Ukrainians and also gave a talk last night at the AUGB's central office on creating a long-lasting commemorative memorial to Canadian Ukrainian servicemen who were stationed in the UK during the Second World War.
I'm here because 40 years ago I came to England to do my doctoral research and began uncovering quite a lot of information about the early history of the Association of Ukrainians in Great Britain, SUB. I learned about the founders, about the Ukrainian Canadian men and women who came here during the Second World War, who volunteered to serve in the Canadian military, brought themselves over to England, and while they were in the course of the war, landed on the continent where they began encountering the Ukrainian displaced persons, the so-called DPs and political refugees and victims of the war. And those men and women from Canada, Bogdan Panchuk, Stanley Frolik, Anne Hrapliva, Anne Charnelsky, Tony Yaramovich, and many, many others, decided that it was part of their duty and responsibility to help save the DPs, to help save their fellow brothers and sisters, victims of communism, victims of Nazism. So they organized. They organized the Ukrainian Canadian Relief Fund. They organized the Central Ukrainian Relief Bureau. They based it out of 218 Sussex Gardens in Paddington, not far from St. James Paddington Church. That was the headquarters of their Servicemen's Association, and they transformed it by the end of the war into CURB. And for the next several years, these Ukrainian Canadians and others spent enormous amounts of energy and effort rescuing the DPs and resettling them across the world, including here in Great Britain. That was the beginning of the Association of Ukrainians in Great Britain. So for me, as a Canadian of Ukrainian heritage whose parents were DPs, I've come back to England several times now, and working with my friends in SUB, we're planning to put up a monument, a memorial of some kind, that will recognize who these Ukrainian Canadian men and women were, why they came here to fight the war on the side of Great Britain against fascism, why they stayed after the war to rescue the DPs, and how that had a profound impact on the Ukrainian diaspora, not just in Canada and the United States and Australia, but right here in England. So this is a project that I think pulls us all together in a way that will allow for historical memory to be recaptured, but at the same time to remember that sometimes sacrifice and hard work is needed to do the right thing.
Dr. Luciuk hopes that Ukrainians in the UK and Canada will recognize the importance of leaving a lasting tribute to those who contributed so much to rescuing tens of thousands of Ukrainians in the immediate aftermath of World War II.
A number of years ago, Bogdan Panchuk, when he was here in England, was asked, what do you do where you do? What do you want? And he said, well, you know, my gospel's pretty straightforward. My gospel, robi shosh, do something, get cracking. And so I'm actually here in England to help raise funds, to help raise support, moral and financial, for placing a memorial, a monument of some kind to those Ukrainian Canadian men and women who came here during the Second World War as volunteers in defense of Great Britain and who after the war helped rescue the DPs, your parents or your grandparents. So this is about commemorating and honoring the men and women who saved the DPs, who are my parents or were my parents when they were alive, who are perhaps you or your parents or grandparents. This is a project that unites the Ukrainian diaspora because the DPs, of course, spread all around the world to Canada, to the United States, and constituted the foundations of the Ukrainian community here in Great Britain. So it's a project that should involve everyone, and I ask for your support.
Dr. Luciuk is returning to Canada on Friday, and the AUGB will continue to liaise with him and his colleagues on accomplishing the Heroes of Their Day project.